Greetings, gamers. Tim here again. And I know it's been a long time since I've said anything. This year, since COVID, has been a bit of a nightmare for me because not only did my asthma come back right before COVID hit everyone, I caught COVID back in late November, early December, and it made me sick enough that they wanted to run some tests, and I haven't heard the results of those tests yet about my lungs. We're still a couple of weeks away before I see my doctor again. However, I have been having serious allergy troubles since then, mostly with my throat, which is caused by, drainage. And it's just horrible. I can't sleep well at night, and so I'm not rested in the mornings, and in general, it's not a good thing for me because I need some rest. I need some time for my brain to percolate and create ideas, etc. I've gotten more work done on editing my novel, which sounds like I've been working on it forever, which is somewhat true. But I'm working on my other novel a bit, realized some places I can put in some conflict, and got some help from some people. There's a local writers group to my area that does NaNoWriMo, and I've spoken with them, and they've given me ideas, and it's really helpful. Now, on that subject, writing is a lot harder and a lot easier than people think. Whether it's creating a game, writing a novel, creating a short story, it's not so much creativity as perseverance. And while I like creativity, and I like the things that go behind that enthusiasm and other things that drive you. When you sit down to write something, the important thing is to keep going. A friend of mine talked about he was using what they call the pulp writer's technique, which was just to write and just write the whole thing down. Don't worry about editing. Don't worry about, word choice. Don't worry about, separating out speech and all these other things. Just write. Get it down on paper or digital now these days. But get it down and then go back and fix it. And that's what I've been doing with my novel to some degree, and Hearts and Souls as well, which is still coming. I'm just not sure when. I have to sit down and I have the free time and feel well enough to do it. And I really haven't been feeling well. I'm having to start a nebulizer for my lungs for my asthma medications because it's gotten more severe. And our weather has been in Texas, in this part of Texas, it's been wet and humid, which causes mold, and hot and dry, which causes the flowers and the other things to bloom. And so, from one allergy to another, I've been going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth because our weather just has not settled into a more persistent and regular summer heat wave that we're used to having here. I mean, it's been moving this way for a while, but this is I think the first year that in the middle of June I expect thunderstorms. Um, oh, I'm actually today's the 1st of July. Never mind. So, but normally by July the thunderstorms have worn off a little bit with an occasional sporadic one here. And then we see them start popping up again in late August, but not always. I mean, it depends on the weather farther um, east of Maine, because whatever is happening in the Gulf of Mexico, even though I'm like entire states away physically in Texas, like we could fit other states between me and the coast, um, it affects us here. It changes the weather patterns and it blows in all sorts of stuff here as well. Not usually to the terrible extent it has been to people on the coast. There's no comparison there, but it is notable and sometimes significant. Hail, for example, totaled the last car I was trying to buy totaled it. Okay, meaning the hail hit so hard and so much that it actually damaged the frame, not just the body, and they called it a loss. I got another car in place, so that one cost me more, and I'm still paying out the nose for it, unfortunately. But that's not all there is about it, which is really weird because it's a slightly older car, but it's weird because Texans and trucks are a weird thing. You can go across the border to any other southern state and probably get a better deal on a truck. Maybe not immediately close to Texas borders because I know they will have Texas visitors buying cars from them. But if you go deeper in, you start getting saner prices for these big gas guzzling things. I don't own that kind of truck. I own a fairly efficient um, vehicle, both for gas. It's still more than the little car I was driving before this one. Um, but I wanted a little more room and I wanted to sit a little bit higher because, I hate like sitting in a hole in the car because I'm fairly tall and it's frustrating. In other news, I have been very worried about something I put money towards as a pre-order, and have been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And a lot of it had to do with the manufacturing, and then a lot of it has been waiting because it got out of where it was manufactured, the country where it was manufactured, and had arrived in the U.S. and did not move for a month. And I'm like, that's kind of an extreme amount of time for um, something like this. I mean, at least it seems to me. It may just be overzealous, or it may have been put back farther back because there were more important things to go through quarantine or whatever we're doing with shipments coming from different countries, since we are worried about other variants of COVID and other things. But I did finally get them. The company is uh, listed as Solar War Heroes, and they produce dice. Now, if you can't tell, these dice are metallic and inset. The numbers are inset, so they won't be scraping the outside and wearing the paint off as easily because there's a little dip into the die before the number's written. I don't know how well they roll. I haven't opened them up yet. Um, so we'll see about that in the future, maybe another video. But they did finally get here. So I'm very happy about that because I've been waiting and waiting and waiting. And they were apologetic. I didn't make a big deal of it on Facebook or anywhere, but I did talk to them and said, "Hey, what's going on?" And they're like, "It's here. It's still in processing for um, to be released to the rest of the U.S." And these are only their metal dice. The plastic dice, the molds were apparently terrible. They had to have those molds stricken and new molds made. So they're like an original dice design that I found interesting and neat, especially the metallic ones for me. Although they all look rather gorgeous, to tell you the truth. Again, don't know how well they roll. Um, and I don't normally pimp things on my thing except actual games. But um, this is something I wanted to share with you because gamers and dice. I love dice. Um, and so and they're companies in Canada, but they they're making they're making them. But if you're waiting on yours, something's going on, and they'll eventually get to you. I hope. Um, but it has taken them a while, and it's not the fault of the companies at all. So it has to do with shipping, and it did like their plastic dice were. They said they came in and they were so terrible, they literally had to have them remade. So you're talking about a small company who's doing their best in a fairly big business um, society, and and they've been a good company about it. They've been, I mean, talking to me and getting me updates when they know anything. Um, and so I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that they've been forthcoming, even if it's a little slower than I would have liked. But it wasn't like they ignored me. So I appreciate that a great deal, guys. So that's one reason you're getting a little bit of pimping here. These Tesseract dice from Solar War Heroes. And I mean, I bought multiple packs because they had a special deal going on. And it was two for one. You buy two, you get another one, another set free. I don't think they have that anymore, but it was well worth it for me. But I like to give dice to friends to just let them try out because I'm a gameaholic for dice, and that's where I am. In other news, I have not been getting a lot of new games. I've been reading a lot because I'm always been told to every writer I've ever spoken to, and that's a lot because we had several local authors to my area who would come to town and they would hit the bookstore chains, and I had one that was local. It was one of my college professors that wrote a book. He unfortunately later committed suicide, which is kind of heartrending in a way. I mean, he wasn't one of the professors I adored, but he was still somebody who was teaching, and it was in community college and not an actual professor. But he was good, fairly good kind of exemplar of a teacher to a certain degree, but in other ways he wasn't because there were a lot of things he lacked. But it's still, someone killing themselves is serious to me because I am a bipolar depressive. I've had those feelings. I am doing extremely well on my medication, but I recently lost a cousin to suicide. And that's one of the things that I like to bring to people's attention is, you know, depressed people don't always seem depressed. They learn to hide it. I am not as one of the best ones at hiding it. So, people knew when I was down or something, but it's always important to look out for the people you love or care about. Now, I'm not familiar with this cousin like deeply, but I wish, having been a depression sufferer, I always wish I could be there for someone else when they're having those kinds of feelings. And it hurts, and I will put trigger warnings on this video about that because that is a horrible thing to talk about, but it needs to be talked about. As a gamer, as uh, somebody who advocates for gaming like I do, because gaming helped me for a long, long time deal with my feelings, um, and a little bit of escapism. And escapism in and of itself is not a bad thing as long as it's a reasonably matched with the understanding that it's fantasy and so on and so forth. Which my mom, I mean, literally before my mom would let me have the game, she made me for my first role playing and she sat me down and said, "You know the difference. If you start having any problems, I want you to tell me, let me know because I grew up during the satanic panic and game. Now, for those who don't know, there's a hubbub going on with a new company. I'm not going to name the company, but let's just say they're using an old familiar name and their handling of things has not been the best. I want to say it's miscommunication. I was hoping, but it seems like they're doubling down on this. And at that point, it's not miscommunication anymore. You're literally, from my point of view, in the wrong. Because, one, for those of you who don't know, whoever watched one of my videos, I am a Christian. I am a gamer. I'm a game writer. But my game writing side is shaped by an understanding of a lot of that. But also, one of the things that this has helped me learn, gaming helped bring me to people I wouldn't normally have met under ordinary circumstances, um, because of gaming at game shops or going to game stores and finding little, players wanted things or whatever. I run into a lot of people over the years that I might not have otherwise, gotten to know. And online, it's been 100 times even more important. And that is Silverlion Studios, my company, me the writer, stands with LGBTQA plus people, whether you're gender nonconforming, whether you're gender fluid, whether you're gay, whether you're lesbian, whether you're trans, whether you're bi, whether you're gender fluid, agender, asexuals. I, as a gamer, take a stand that you need to be represented. And that includes people of color who aren't any of the LGBTA things. And they often get marginalized by both either the LGBTA people, and white people who are that. So let me explain this in very simple terms. Gaming is about being welcoming to a point. And the reason I say to a point is there are some people who you just cannot accept in gaming. And that's abusers, and that's people who can't accept that the person across from them has a gender identity that does not conform with the one they perceive. Meaning, if you see a person and they say they are a she, treat them like a she, treat them like a woman, treat them with respect, treat them with care, and treat them with love, because that is the basis of my Christian belief, is to treat people with love. My company, my word, I am saying straight out, I support these people. I support my version of Christian values, which is that I love you, you are important, and even if you do not choose to follow my Christian path, I will still love and respect you. I would prefer that you did, but I'm not requiring, expecting, or trying to manhandle you into that, because any path of faith or non-faith, if you are an atheist or an agnostic, um, is the path you get to choose. And I am not going to interfere with that. I might talk about my faith from time to time, but the point is not trying to stop on anyone's freedom for that in any way. You have the right to choose as you want, and I will respect it, because we each have to set our feet down in the order we feel most appropriate to walk our personal path. And your personal path and mine diverge, that's okay, as long as I can still offer you respect and love and caring. And there are things that are problematic, like abuse, that exist still in the gaming world. The fact that over 50% of modern gamers are women, women is a notable number, for the very reason is that they have often been marginalized by people in gaming. Women, don't let anyone do that. Don't let me do that. Don't let someone else do that. This is your space. This is a person of color space. This is an LGBTA space. But this is not a space for the kind of people who would reject you. And I know this is a little more vitriolic than a lot of the things I talk about. But at the end of the day, I have to stand with my morals and my ethics and my beliefs. And those are very much values that it has taken me a long time to establish, because my parents were very religious. to the point that I have had to work very hard to make my mom understand the importance of reaching out across what she sees as some sort of vast barrier to understand and empathize with people who are LGBTA. She never had a problem with people of color, but that was her one bad thing that kept sticking. Uh, now, gaming is not in and of itself about politics, but any human endeavor, any social endeavor that we do will impact others. And whether you think that's politics or not, it doesn't matter because we need to welcome those people who are not abusive and not marginalizing others. That literally means we need to help anyone who is willing to game, who has some form of disability or some form of trigger, some form of fear, or other things that they need to deal with, we need to respect. And we need to not taunt them, mistreat them, or do anything because at the end of the day, gaming is a social hobby. You have, and it is difficult for some people in gaming because there is a large contingent of people who are autistic in one way or another, and autism makes the world a little more challenging for them because some of the social things they don't understand. But game rules, they can sometimes. Sometimes they can't. But if they're trying, the important thing is to assist them as much as possible if they want it. You know, we can't force it on them. But that's true. It's like my bipolar depression. I don't expect necessarily everybody to reach out and say, "Oh, hey, I'm going to help you." But I do appreciate it when people do. A vast amount. Sometimes I have spent my time crying over the generosity and care of gamers that I have gamed with. And forgive me my clubbing words today. Between mucus and dry mouth, and I don't understand how this can get dried out, but not the back of the throat. I have uh, met many fantastic people, and I will meet hopefully many fantastic more. And they are people of color. They are LGBT. They are atheists. They are agnostics. They are religious. They are lots of different. But the one thing they're not, for the most part, the good ones that are worth keeping in gaming, is abusive, is marginalizing, and hateful. Those things have to be ended. I may be alone in this, but I don't think I am. I think there are quite a few people who can help end this. We need to stop being so welcoming that we accept those kinds of things in our vicinity. We stand up and say, no, you're not welcome at my gaming table because you cannot respect that person's gender pronoun. You cannot respect that person's skin color. You cannot respect that person's faith unless it's intruding upon the game in some way and makes it hurtful. And I mean real hurt, not just hurt feelings a little bit. I mean, hurt feelings matter, but just like a friend, and I mentioned something, and he mentioned it on Facebook, and he talked about he is in an all gay RPG group. And he says it's very different than having a mixed gaming group. What he means is, straight people and non gay people. And he's right, because there, everything is 100% okay and accepting, and there's no prejudice, there's no difficulties. And while that may be very, very true, we can all have difficulties with just each other on an individual level, rather than the labels we put upon ourselves. But in this case, I understand. I respect what he's saying. I would not make my group, for example, all white male oriented. Now, that is the bulk of my face to face group is a white male, although we have had many women in the past in our groups over the years. And I played with many other groups other than my current one, and we've had a variable mix. Um, it's not as common, and I don't know if it's cultural because I live in a very, I guess you might say, backwards part of Texas, but it's not very often that we get gamers of color. You know, whatever that means to you, it's not as common. That doesn't mean I haven't tried to teach people who are interested. That doesn't mean I won't accept them. I have had Hispanic gamers. I have had others of different skin colors as well, but it's just not as common where I live. And if it's possible to reach out, I will do so. We've gone back finally to playing at the comic book store. And if somebody comes in and is interested in playing, none of those things, whether they're LGBTA, no matter their skin color, no matter their age, as long as it's okay, if they're underage, their parentals, whoever they are, allow it. Um, I will invite them to the table, and we will try to make them welcome because it's important. That's all I have to say about this time. But my company stands behind people of color. My company stands behind transgender people, behind lesbians, behind gays, behind bisexual people, agendered people, asexual people, aromantic people, non binary. We also stand with binary people too, as long as they're welcoming the rest of things. Because let's be honest, we want a game, we want to have fun. And the best way to do that is learning more, gaining more, teaching more. And teaching is an aspect of gaming that I think is important. I mean, we may have a newbie. They may show up. I know that two of my players of my now deceased last D&D game um, were just walk-ins. They just walked in the store and they were looking for this other guy who was signing up games. And they looked and they looked and I said, "Do you need more players?" And I said, "Sure, go ahead, join me." And we did. Unfortunately, when COVID hit afterwards, kind of cut gaming down for some of them, of the new people we've invited. We still have one. We lost the other. But I've gained some, old friends have joined as well. But that's the thing. An open table is open enough to welcome all kinds of people except those who cannot be kind and tolerant to the people around them, who can't be not harmful to the people around them. And that's a big difference from being harmless to being not harmful. Being harmless usually implies you don't have any power to do harm, but we all have power to do harm. And that's something we need to remember, to try and watch for and not let happen. I know I lost a gaming friend for many years because when I was younger, I was what someone would call homophobic. I didn't know he was gay. I didn't. As far as I know, the way he talked, he was straight. He never revealed to me that. And he was also a gamer of color. And he was a sweet guy when he was young, a little less sweet when he got older, but still a bright spark in gaming. And the world took him away. I mean, and some of my fear probably took him away. But I got over it over the years. Because in the end, what matters to me, what Christianity's ultimate message, what my ultimate message is to love one another. And we can forgive people who are harmful to others, but we have to make sure they're not capable of harming again. And sometimes that means not letting them at the table. You have to be willing to accept that, especially in modern gaming, because we have a lot of women, because we have a lot of old white guys like me. We have a lot of people of color. We have a lot of people who are LGBTA. And those things, all those things are people, just people. And we've always been just people. And we should welcome more people into our social circles with love and kindness, as long as they do no harm. Sort of a version of the Hippocratic Oath. First, do no harm. And that's my message for today. Peace, good gaming. I'm out for now. Much love to you, your families, to everyone, because of COVID and because of everything else and all the fallout, all the heartbreaking losses that people have suffered. Be blessed. Have positive vibes if you're not religious, whatever. And I live in an area where there's a lot of uh, immigrants who come here because we're dry, and where they come from is dry and hot. Where we're from is dry and hot. And I asked my doctors and stuff, where are you from? And like I get one, it's like I'm second generation American but Chinese, and this other one is the second generation but I'm Lebanese, and then this other one is South Korean, and this other one was Nigerian, and on and on and on and on and on. And I'm trying to be respectful of that because to me it's exciting. To me, this is so cool. I ran into a woman who had a really strange accent, and I asked her where she's from, and she goes, Arizona. I said, well, okay, where are your ancestors from? Because that's not an Arizonan accent that I'm familiar with. She goes, South Africa. And I'm like, okay, now I understand. And that's great. Because to me, I get the opportunity to meet people. And I love it. I love it. I went back to the denture place to get my dentures fixed, which I'm not wearing. And I need to remember to do that every day. But the new doctor that had replaced the old one, because he was an old gent years ago when I got all my teeth pulled in place, was a lovely, pleasant Hindu woman. And I just said, I don't know what to say other than God bless, because I actually have never met a Hindi person before. Never. And I met a lot of Muslims. I met a lot of, other different religions. And she's like, so is that okay? Do you have something you prefer? And she just smiled, and She still had COVID masking going on during this time, but she had these laugh lines. It was just, I could tell she was grinning ear to ear. And she says, that'll do. And I'm like, well, I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm glad you're here because I am. Because the world is a wonderful place if we make it that way. And the first place we make it wonderful is here, in our hearts, in our heads, for other people, by opening that up and sharing it with them. So, God bless. If you don't believe in God, well, bless. Just hopefully you have a wonderful day and you have a lot of fun gaming. And I'll see you next.